Well, happy Aloha Friday. Thanks so much for tuning in here to Spotlight Hawaii. I'm Ryan Kalei-Suji, joined by Yanji Denise. We want to thank all of you for tuning in. A lot of you already tuning in this morning. Great to see so many of you chiming on in. Please insert your comments. And Yanji, this is a guest that always receives a lot of questions and a lot of comments here today.
Yeah, we're so lucky to have Anne Perreira-Eustaquio joining us this morning. She, of course, is the director of the Department of Labor and Industrial Relations, and that department is responsible for handling unemployment claims and benefits. We know so many of you have been struggling and have relied on this office for assistance, and so we appreciate, Anne, you being here again this morning. Thank you so much for being here. Let's start with the basics. We're already seeing questions coming in, but for folks just starting out, what are the benefits available, and how should folks apply?
Great. Thank you. Thank you for having me again. I appreciate it. I know that there's a lot of information that needs to be communicated to our community. So first of all, we still have our 26 weeks of benefits. So those are for individuals who have not yet filed a claim or exhausted a claim. So they'll come on board. They'll file for their 26 weeks. We'll determine what their monetary eligibility is and whether they are eligible non-monetarily, meaning that they were either laid off because of the pandemic or for good cause, and then they can start their claim. Once they were to exhaust their 26 weeks, then you would go on to the initial PEUC 13. And that's 13 additional weeks of benefits over and beyond the 26 regular weeks of benefits. Those 13 weeks initially were to expire on December 26th of 2020. With the new passage of the stimulus package, with the bill signed on the 28th of December of 2020, the PEUC was extended for 11 additional weeks. That would give an individual 24 weeks of PEUC. So there's so many different categories of individuals and where they fall within these additional 11 weeks. As of the end of December 26, there were individuals who had already exhausted their PEUC 13 and actually had moved on to what we call EB20. EB20 is an additional 13 weeks. The state triggered on EB20 in May 2020, and you could collect 13 additional weeks. The state doesn't trigger off of EB20 until we reach lower than 5% unemployment. And so with the passage of this new bill, if you had exhausted your PEUC 13 as well as your EB20, you would now move on to your additional 11 weeks of PEUC. I want to say that PEUC 11 additional weeks has not yet started for those individuals. So the individuals within that category. Those individuals who had not yet exhausted their PEUC 13 prior to December 26, say they had additional earnings still in their weekly benefit amount that they could collect on. They can continue to file their weekly claim certifications and continue to receive their additional weeks that they hadn't exhausted prior to December 26. Now there's another category of individuals who had exhausted their 13 weeks just prior to December 26. And at that time, we did not know if the bill was going to be signed and passed. And so we had not yet determined that there would be additional 11 weeks of benefits. So those individuals were given the option to apply for EB20. Now, if they applied for so that was before December 26. If you applied for EB20 before December 13th, then we have been processing those EB20 applications. But if you apply for EB20 after December 13th, so between December 13th and the end of the first program of PEUC 13, which is December 26, we are not processing any of those EB20 claims. We are going to come out with a question to all those individuals on whether they really want that EB20 or not. Because those individuals may not want to collect the EB20 and they may want to wait for the additional 11 weeks of PEUC. And it gets confusing. So just to explain, If you wait for the EB20, the PEUC 11 weeks, you'll be able to collect all 11 weeks of your PEUC extension and then hop on to EB20 and collect your additional 13 weeks of benefits, because we know it's going to be quite a while before Hawaii triggers off of EB20. But if you don't want to wait for the PEUC 11 to come into effect, you could start your EB20 right away. But because EB20 is 13 weeks and PEUC 11 is only 11 weeks, some of those individuals, depending on when they exhaust their original 13 weeks, may not qualify for the PEUC 11 at all, because they won't yet expire their EB20 of 13 weeks before they can start collecting their PEC of 11 weeks. So it gets very confusing for claimants, and what to do and what steps to take. So we put some graphs up on our website, and it shows these different categories of individuals and what path they may take.
All right. Let's also ask that we're, of course, seeing a lot of questions, a lot of individual questions. So we're going to start with these broad strokes before we get into some of the more specific questions. Can you give us an update on PUA and the extension that has? Of course, we know that was something that was been set up because of the pandemic and during the pandemic. What is the status of those who are looking to make a claim under the PUA benefits?
Right. So on PUA, of course, we are off of the antiquated mainframe. We are on a brand new modernized system with PUA. And so PUA's up and running. And so those individuals who exhausted their original weeks for PUA can now last weekend, could start to receive benefits moving on from starting January 2nd, which is the first payable week of the new extended benefits, as well as FPUC. So all those individuals who are on PUA and are starting to apply or file their weekly claim certifications for the week ending January 1st and moving forward are receiving their $300 plus up, which is the FPUC program. The only thing with PUA is that the new requirement with the law requires us to make sure that claimants now prove that they are self-employed. And within 90 days after the program starts, so the new program started on the 1st of January, they have 90 days to send us documentation to prove that they're self-employed. Prior to that, it was just identity verification, and then they just had to self-certify that they were self-employed. And if they cannot prove that they're self-employed within the 90 days, then they will lose their benefits and they'll be charged for the overpayments from the beginning of the January 1st extension.
Okay, and now you did address a little bit of that $300 plus up, if you will. Janice Levy has a question, 1038. I'm on unemployment benefits, just regular ones. When will I receive the extra $300? Let's take it beyond Janice's question, just for everybody. Who gets that extra $300, and how do you make sure that that's added to the benefit?
Okay, so the $300 is for 11 weeks as well. It starts the week ending January 2nd and goes all the way to the week ending of March 13th. Everyone who actually receives a payment on those weekly claim certifications, so they qualify and they receive a benefit, they will get now this overage or plus up of $300. So on the PUA side, like I said, it's up and running and claimants are already receiving those payments. On the regular unemployment insurance side, it is not yet ready. We are still programming that application into the mainframe. And it should come up in about a couple of weeks. I can't give you an exact date. We have run into some problems with programming the FPUC on the mainframe because of what we're seeing on the multi-tier system of all these individuals expiring at different times and making sure that payments are made correctly.
Okay, we also have another question here. How can I cancel my EB20 claim that I filed on 12/23 with exhausted PEUC? I want to apply for the PEUC before EB20. I think we're getting a lot of questions about that because there was that uncertainty of this second round. And so for those who have maybe went into the EB20 phase but want to retract that, what is the process for them?
Right. So that's the group I feel, the most for, because I know they're not sure what's going to happen with their claim because they filed for EB20 and they really don't want to. So we are coming out with a process to notify all those individuals that did file for EB20 between that December 13th time frame until now. We're going to come out and ask them, are you sure you want to apply for EB20? If you do, we will automatically run their EB20 claims. If they don't want to file for EB20, we will cancel their EB20 applications. And right now, it doesn't look like they'll have to actually apply again for the second extension on PEUC, the PEUC 11. And I say right now, it looks that way because that's how the programming is going. We're going to not have them have to apply again because it becomes very confusing. We're going to just try and add the additional 11 weeks in a tiered format scheme. And we're doing that because we are hearing that there is going to be an additional package after March 13th that the president is now looking at, a $1.9 trillion package that will have additional unemployment insurance benefits. And we want to make sure that we can program this so that when that package comes out, it won't be, the next day, but at least we'll have some processes in place where we can just additionally add on weeks if that's what they're going to do. And so that's what we're working on right now.
Okay, and I think this is covered in that, but I want to get to Christy Zelensky's question, Ryan. It's at 1041. Will we have to go back in and file for PEUC 11, or will UI get us updated automatically?
So that's what we're trying to do, get it automatically updated, and they don't have to file for the additional 11 weeks of PEUC. But we will be giving instructions on that, but that's what it looks like right now. But I wanted to go back real quick and let those individuals know who did apply for EB20 and can't wait. There's individuals out there who just can't wait for the PEUC 11 and they want to get their EB20 because they need to get those checks coming now. I would say to call our call center and let them know that they want the EB20 and we will make sure that they get processed.
We're seeing some comments here as well for those individuals who may have also been just a standard unemployment, not necessarily regarded to PEUC or PUA, but they have seen a disruption in payments and claims. Can you provide any updates as to why some individuals who maybe are not associated with these programs are seeing some delay, and what is the status on those claims?
I'm not sure about those who are just regular unemployment insurance claimants. We did have some issues when we turned off the EB20 and we turned off the PEUC 11 to just make sure we extended the EB20 because that program was going to continue until we went under 5% unemployment. And there was some disruption in the programming in the mainframe, but it affected those who were just going to be moving on to PEUC and those who were on EB20. But if they were just purely on regular unemployment, their claim should have continued to process.
Okay, let's talk a little bit more broadly. We're going to get into some of the specifics. I see lots of questions coming in, but I'm interested to know, how many individuals are we talking about? How many people are in these various tranches? You don't necessarily have to break it down group by group, but how many people overall are we looking at? And then I saw some questions about adjudicators. Do you have the resources that you need to handle the flood of claims that you're getting?
Right. So we have several thousands in the group that applied for EB20 already, and that's the group that we're concerned about. That's the group that we're creating a list, and we're going to reach out to those individuals and find out if they really want the EB20 or not. The biggest group of those individuals are those that expired exactly on December 26th. That's incredible. That's the biggest group of individuals. They expired their PEUC 11 on December 26th, and 13, and they're waiting for their PEUC 11 to start. That's our biggest group. Adjudicators. So I'm not sure if I mentioned this on the show last time, but we have received approval by the governor, like we did with an in-house call center. We're going to have an in-house adjudication center because we did go out, we hired a contractor, and they brought on 100 adjudicators. Those adjudicators were working on the more simple issues. Those did not accept work, as well as the trips and the ills. But we do have many that are still outstanding on what we're calling the overpayment issues. Those are those individuals who had gotten overpaid on regular unemployment insurance benefits, are trying to move over to PEUC, but we have not processed their original 13 weeks of PEUC because there was an overpayment. Those overpayments need to go to the adjudication team as well. So we got approval to hire 67 adjudicators. They'll be stationed out of the Hawaii Convention Center. We posted those positions 2 Thursdays ago. We have received almost 50 applications every day since then for those 67 positions. We are in the process of vetting those applications. We should have several on board hopefully by next week, but we have to train them and we have to teach them how to actually perform an overpayment process and do the due process, make sure that we give each of the parties due process, which is the claimant and the employer, make those determinations, clean up the overpayments, and hopefully move those claimants on to their initial 13 weeks of PEUC, which many of them have already expired if we were to have paid them those 13 weeks.
It seems like there's a lot of questions about the new PEUC program. And as you wait to sort of bring that online, what would you advise to people who are in this holding pattern waiting for that? Are they going to be able to get paid for this backdate period? And how should they handle that process if they, once that system comes online, and being able to get paid back for that time that it took to get the system up and running?
Okay, so definitely they'll get the back weeks. It started week ending January 2nd, so everyone will get paid back to January 2nd if they're eligible and they qualify. I could tell you that we started at that call center at the Hawaii Convention Center. We brought on 1/4 of the individuals so far. We actually hired 46 individuals and we only have 25 on board because the rest either quit or never showed up because it's a tough job. And so the 21 that we actually have doing processing, and we have 4 doing more of a helping with the back end processing. So those 21 individuals have been answering calls this week. They've actually been taking calls, as well as our contractor. And they're taking certain calls that are routed to them because they're doing on-the-job training. And so the very first day that they started taking calls was 1 week after they had started and 1 week of training. They took over 300 calls that day. That's an excellent amount for 21 individuals who had just learned the process. But the better or the more exciting part of it is that they're cleaning up those claims. So they're not being told, sorry, we can't help you. Your claim's being sent to the claims examiner or being sent to unemployment, or it's going to be accelerated by someone else. And so we have these individuals working from A to Z. They're looking at these claims and they're cleaning up that claim so that someone can move on to the next process. The only processes they can't clean up, of course, are the ones that the adjudicators need to tackle, which is the separation issues and the overpayment issues. But it's so nice to see that these individuals have come on board. They're excited. They were unemployed themselves at one point. They want to do a good job. They want to help the people of Hawaii. And I went down to the convention center last week and met all of them, had the opportunity to visit with every single one of them. And it's so nice to see that they're on board and they're excited and they want to help. And so they come on board next week, Tuesday, with the full call center. So the main number that's being called, they're going to start answering those calls. And we're bringing on another 30 individuals to be trained so they can come on the next week taking calls. So we started this transition period, and I know that this is going to work much better than the process we have in place right now.
Megan Palama has a question at 10:49, just saying, since the additional $300 won't be paid out for a few more weeks, when it is paid out, will it be paid out in a lump sum?
So if you had filed your weeks, say we hadn't run the FPUC yet, but we've ran the PEUC 11 and you started collecting on PEUC and you filed those weeks. When we make payment on those weeks, it'll be made as a lump sum through those separate weeks. But so you had to have filed those weeks, right? We're not just going to pay unless there was a weekly claim filed for that week. If we bring everything on board at the same time, then you have to actually come in and file your weekly claim certifications in order to get paid. But if they're all filed on the same day, they all get processed at the same time, then it'll be deposited into your bank account through the ACH transaction all one time.
Okay, and still, I think there's some confusion. So you may have answered this earlier. I think you did already, but just to kind of clear things up again, for those who are waiting for the PEUC extension, should they be applying right now? And what is that process like for them? Because do they just sort of hold on until that is up and running?
Yeah, sorry for the confusion. I know it's very confusing. So the only individuals who can actually file for PEUC right now are those individuals still collecting the regular 13 weeks of PEUC. So those collecting who haven't exhausted and those who are brand new collecting, because there are still some individuals who were on regular unemployment, had not yet exhausted their 26 weeks and had not yet moved on to PEUC. So as of today, they'll notice that there's a button up on the dashboard. And I'll talk about, the PEUC and how PEUC was 13 weeks and it's been extended for 11 additional weeks. And to file PEUC, click here. That button is for those who have not yet received their first initial 13 weeks of PEUC. They'll be able to click on that button, file for PEUC 13, and start receiving those benefits. We don't yet have a button up for those who have exhausted their original 13 weeks of PEUC and are waiting for their additional 11.
There are a number of people who are asking the question that we ask you every time you come on, which is if and when you plan to open any kind of in-person services or do anything that we've talked about in the past in terms of like a Zoom or WebEx or face-to-face appointment via the internet. What's the status on that?
So we are currently not opening the building for face-to-face service. I am still very concerned, not about the pandemic, but again, about the crowd control here on all of the islands statewide. That's very concerning. We still have thousands of individuals who would be coming down to the office and we would not be able to manage that crowd. I am hoping with this new call center and the way it's been going for the past 2 weeks, the training, how they've been able to handle these calls in this past week, I'm hoping that this will be an avenue that will really help these claimants get the information they need and the response they need, because I know they haven't gotten the response that they've been asking for. And so I'm hoping this will help in that regard. Also, we have hired with this new group individuals who actually can speak more than just one language. And so with that, we're able to help those who have limited English proficiency. And we also have these individuals working with a contractor that we work with to bring on a translator if we need to, if we don't have individuals in-house who speak the language of that claimant who needs the help.
At the end of last year, we know that the first round of CARES Act funding, the governor said whatever was remaining left that the state did not pay off would actually go back into the unemployment, fund essentially, and to pay that down. How much money was left on the table that actually got extended back into that unemployment fund for the state?
So since that bill was extended and the CARES Act funding was extended, so we were able to extend the process to exhaust those funds, those CARES Act funds. Some of the agencies still are holding on to those funds and paying for programs that they're still running. But we have put towards the Unemployment Insurance Trust Fund about $39 million so far. The Unemployment Insurance Office still has some outstanding CARES Act money that we're actually using to keep the contractor on for a couple of more months to help us get through this transition period of bringing on our in-house adjudication team as well as our in-house call center.
Okay, I think that a lot of people are just pretty frustrated. What is the call center response now that you have these more people coming on? What is the response and the wait time? What has that been like? And how many calls? I think the last time we talked, you were getting thousands a day. I can't remember the exact number, but how many people are you actually able to interact with and take care of, if you will?
Well, right now we have 2 call centers still. We still have the contractor who's on board till the end of the month, and they will continue to help us to take calls. That process takes almost 3,000 calls a day They actually answer a little under 3,000 calls, so 92% of the calls. These are distinct calls. Of course, they get way more than 3,000 calls, but distinct number calls are 3,000, and they actually answer 92% of those calls. Our other call center, which is our in-house call center, there's still only 21 individuals on board, but I think what I'd like to see, and this is what I told the new individuals who came on the call center, is I'd rather you take 500 calls a day and fix every single one of those 500 calls claims from beginning to end and satisfy a claimant than taking 1,000 calls a day and sending every one of them, or at least half of them, to wait for someone else to call them. And so that's my goal. And so as we bring on more individuals to our in-house call center, we will be able to help more and more individuals to attain that goal.
Okay. Is there any timeline that you can maybe provide for the PEUC 11 on when that will be up and running? I know that you said that you are still working on some of the details for that process, but is there a target date or anything that you are trying to aim for in order to stand this up so people can begin filing?
Yeah. And so you never know what's going to happen when you're programming a mainframe that is from the 1980s. And so that's what we're dealing with. We're dealing with a mainframe. I just can't express how much more difficult this is than people understand. We're dealing with a mainframe that is extremely antiquated, that has been touched many times now in the last 9 months. And it's fragile. And we're extremely concerned that this mainframe is going to crash. Now, if this mainframe crashes, nobody gets paid. Nobody gets paid the 26 weeks of regular benefits. Nobody gets paid the extended weeks. The only individuals who will continue to get paid are those who are on PUA. So I'm deliberately cautious in the steps we take to program these new applications so that we can balance the effect on the mainframe and meeting the needs of the claimants. And I know how frustrating that is. I know it's extremely frustrating, but I cannot afford for this mainframe not to be here and everything become manual. So if you're going to ask me for a date for the PEUC, I'd have to say I'd like to see it in the next week, but I could tell you it's probably not going to be in the next week. I would have to say if I were to feel comfortable or confident, it'd be 2 weeks before we're going to see the FPUC and the PEUC, partial PEUC up and running. Probably not every single scenario, because I told you there's different tiers, right? Those individuals who have exhausted just on 26 weeks, and all we have to do is add 11 additional weeks. That's the first tier. But we have individuals who have exhausted before the 26, and there's weeks in between where they can't get any payments. You know, they don't receive any payments from the time they exhausted to 26 till December, end of December 26. And so either they go on EB20 so that they can make up those payments, but once they go on EB20, they can't jump off and go to PEUC 11 in between of the EB20. So it's really difficult to program those in-between weeks, those that, and everybody exhausts at different times, right? Mm-hmm. So you got many different tiers in between those individuals that didn't exhaust on December 26 when the program ended. And that's the difficulty.
We're getting a lot of questions once you mention the mainframe and its fragility as to why the state has not created a new mainframe. I would imagine that that's a pretty serious undertaking and would take a lot of money and time.
Yeah, it's not just creating another mainframe. It's actually moving off the mainframe. We have information in there since the beginning of our program. And all of that information needs to be converted to a new platform and application. We are in the process, actually, of modernizing. So we are in talks with the contractor. We have a contract in hand. I'm ready to sign that contract. But that contract has to be vetted by the state IT department. And we're actually today we go in front of that council and we pitch our program and our modernization platform, and we either get approved or not. So I'm hoping today will be some really good news where we will be approved for our modernization program. We can sign that contract, and we can get moving with the contract. The contractor can start right away. And so if we do move on and get that contract signed, it'll take 18 months for us to move forward, implement this new application, this new platform, convert all the data, and get it up and running so claimants and employers both can use this application. So it's not something that will come up tomorrow, but it's something that we've been working on these past several months to move forward and modernize.
And quickly, I know that we're out of time here, but just to plan ahead, you know, with you're talking about the Biden administration potentially adding more and more services. How do you sort of take those steps now so that we don't have that lag in this next round that could potentially be coming out, knowing that the mainframe is as fragile as it is?
Right. So we don't know what those new programs are yet, right? All we know is there's a $1.9 trillion package that he's passing, and it does include unemployment insurance. And so we're trying to do what we can by just guessing what's going to happen in the future, trying to program that in now in the tier levels so that we can add the additional, hopefully, this package will just add additional weeks and not have a gap in between weeks. So if no matter when I exhaust, I just get an additional, whatever it is, 50 weeks. And I don't have to worry about my tiers and exhausting in between. And so we're trying to calculate for that. We're trying to do that now. I could tell you that it's not going to be automatic because I am still going to continue to be very cautious about this mainframe and make sure that we do it right so we keep it up and running and balanced, and we can pay individuals what they need to be paid on a semi-timely manner and get the mainframe running accurately.
I know we're at the top of the hour and our time has expired, but just want to ask you for any final thoughts. We have a mix of comments in here. A lot of people thanking you for all the work that you and your staff are doing, and then a lot of other people who are pretty frustrated with all the hurdles. And like you mentioned, having these gaps and these new programs, it is very confusing. And just, to tell people that that's not something of your doing. This is really the federal government pushing out programs and you folks trying to respond. But just some final thoughts this morning from you, if you would.
So I understand the frustration. I mean, I hear it every day. I hear the stories. They're not happy stories, they're difficult stories. And so I can't reiterate anymore how hard we're trying to get this to work. We actually told our congressional delegation, and we also wrote a letter to Congress on what we would like to see in extended packages. Don't make it so difficult, where these programs are hard to implement into these antiquated mainframe systems. They don't listen to us. They continue not to listen to us. We're hoping they'll get that message because we don't like not being able to pay claimants timely. And so I can assure you, we're doing the best we possibly can. We will continue to do the best we possibly can, and we will continue to try and get those programs out as fast as we possibly can.
Okay, Director, thank you so much for taking time to join us this morning. We know that was a lot of questions and there's a lot that you're dealing with, but we appreciate you just taking some time out of your day to address these questions and speak to the viewers directly. So thank you so much.
Thank you for having me. Thank you.
Thank you. Wow, Ryan. Well, thank all of you as well for writing in your questions. We really do appreciate it. And before the show, Ryan and I did take a look at the website, and we would encourage you, presumably most of you are familiar with it, labor.hawaii.gov. If you go on there, she does have some pretty interesting graphics. They were a little bit too much on the screen to put before you, but that sort of lay out, okay, if you're in this scenario, this is what you do, and this is what you do, and so on, for each of the programs that she mentioned. And those are new graphics, relatively new. We would encourage you to go look at them because we know that each of you is in a different circumstance. And so we didn't necessarily get to each of your questions. That's right. And we know that there are many of you out there who are waiting for that second round, that PEUC that will be stood up, hopefully. That she was not able to give us a date, but saying that she understands the need for it and that they will likely or try to get it up in the next few weeks. Also talking about the mainframe and how delicate that it is and what that really causes overall to the challenges that it presents to be able to set this up while also trying to balance everything that is on that server, knowing how critical it is. The one thing they obviously do not want to see is that whole thing come crashing down. And so to stand up this other program is going to be takes a little bit more time, she's saying,
So she's asking for patience from the public and for those of you who are waiting out there, and to also that you will be able to receive those benefits when they are able to get that up and running.
Yeah, and still no plans to open any kind of in-person appointments. We know a lot of frustration on that end because so many of you think it would be easier to just go in there and plead your case in person and explain your unique circumstances. Unfortunately, she says they're just too worried about crowd control. And with the coronavirus still in our community, there is a health risk as well. So no plans for that. Interesting that she shared the information that they're going before the state today to try to get a new mainframe contract to build out something approved. But even if that does get approved, it would take a year and a half to stand up. So that would not provide anyone on this format with any immediate relief.
But the good news is there is more help coming in terms of the call center. She explained that next week there will have more people available to take calls that will be able to handle claims directly. And so we know that there are a lot of people out there who have experienced issues with the call center in the past. This is a new type of call center with different individuals working there that are able to address some of the more specific and complicated needs that are out there. And so we encourage people to continue to call this call center once that is up and running, and hopefully you'll be able to get it. It is running now, but they'll get more support next week, and hopefully that will help with some of the backlog that we're seeing. But certainly appreciate her taking time to join us here, and we hope to have her back on sometime next month as well to give us an update because we know that there are many questions still out there about this specific topic.
Absolutely. And looking ahead to next week on Monday, one of the industries that's been hardest hit during the pandemic is the bar industry. We're going to have Bill Comerford joining us along with Legends Sports Bar pub owner John Harrison. Those are two individuals that have been in our community, bar owners for a long time. Mr. Comerford owned 4 bars, and Legends is one of the oldest pubs in Waikiki. Unfortunately for both, they've been very hard hit, they and their staff. And so they're going to come on and talk about some of the lawsuits that the Hawaii Bar Owners Association has pursued against the city and the state for some of the restrictions for the tier system. And also, how do we stand up this industry going forward? So we're really interested to talk to them.
That's right. We're also going to be talking about a new app that has been introduced to the state next week that is helping to track COVID-19 in our community. We'll be talking to the individuals who set that up and what it all means and how this app is being used to help service the community and keep COVID-19 in check here in our community as well.
Yeah, and on Friday, we're going to have the new head of the city council, representative or council member, rather, Tommy Waters is going to be joining us. What is the new council dynamic like? What's their relationship with the new mayor? And what are they hoping to put forth to try to help bring our city back? So we have a great lineup for next week.
So we want to thank all of you again for tuning in to Spotlight Hawaii. We apologize for not being able to get to all of your questions. There were hundreds of questions today, many of them very specific. We tried our best to be and get to as many broad topics as we can. We encourage you to go back, watch this interview in its entirety if you joined maybe halfway through, because the director did go into detail over where all of the programs are at right now. And we encourage you to visit the labor website to get more information where you can sort of see those graphs that we also talked about earlier. Again, that's labor.hawaii.gov. Head over there for more information. And again, we will see you all back here on Monday at 10:30. Aloha.
Aloha.